welcome back to Faith Works Designs. I'm Faith, and today we're going to be showing you how to do some more of the steps that I've got for making a memory quilt. Now, Christmas is coming, and a lot of people love to get this as a Christmas present, and so hopefully you guys will be able to take these instructions and be able to make your own memory quilt. Now, what do you need? Everybody always asks me, how many t-shirts do I need? How many of this, how many of that to make it? It's really difficult with a memory quilt because all of your t-shirts are going to be different. They're all going to be different sizes. When you're working with a child's quilt and you've got children's clothes, they tend to be a lot smaller, so you're going to need a larger quantity to be able to do that. So just keep that in mind. Obviously, the bigger the shirts, the less shirts that you're going to have. For this shirt, I believe I had about 18 or so different fabrics to work with. I had pants, I had t-shirts, but it was 18 different things so that I had a variety. Now, would it have been easier to have had bigger blocks? Yes. But the customer wanted them to be a little smaller, and I actually really like how it all came about because it looks really nice, it looks really neat. Almost like it's not a memory quilt, almost like it's a regular quilt that got put together with all of these different fabrics. So I really like how it turned out. That one, I said it, about 18 shirts. So the first thing that you're going to need to do is get enough materials to work with. Now you're going to have to guesstimate here and see how much you're going to need. It all depends. The one that I'm making in the video today is a queen size. I had roughly 280 or 288 blocks to work with, and they were 4.5 by 4.5 inch blocks. So if that gives you any estimate, I also went ahead and before I got started pre-cut some of my strips that I knew that were going to be in between each block. Those were 2 inches long, and what I did was I wanted them to be on a continuous strip all the way down, so that as I was doing it, you wouldn't see where I had put them together. So I went ahead and I knew a queen was 108 wide by 90 tall, so I went ahead and got 90 inches of the blue fabric so that it would go straight down because I knew how I was going to work it. Anyway, long-winded answer to say you're going to need 90 inches of length if you're going to do your seams going down the side. So I prepped those, and the next thing we're going to be talking about is cutting the clothes apart. Now, this can be tricky if you're emotionally attached to these clothes. It's okay. You're going to have a blanket when you get done, and you can snuggle with that when you get done with it. Alright, the very first thing you want to do when you're cutting out your clothing and trying to get it to a flat substance of fabric is that you're going to want to cut up the sides of where the stomach is, right here. And then, as you go up, you can cut around the sleeves. Now, what I normally do is I'll cut up both sides, open the shirt up, lay it flat, and then cut around the sleeve. What you could do is you could take a large piece of interfacing and you can put it on one side of the shirt and iron it like that. But what I found is that when you have a really big piece of interfacing to work with, it doesn't lay as flat as it could. So what I did was I went ahead and cut 6.5 inch strips of interfacing, and I did each 6.5 inch strip of interfacing on the shirts at a time. And that way it was just easier to work with instead of having one large sheet of interfacing to have to iron on. Now the way interfacing works is one side is soft and the other side has like a bumpy texture on it. That's your glue. That's what's going to make the interfacing adhere to the clothing. Having interfacing is really important because if you're trying to sew the shirts together and say they're a knit, they're probably going to stretch and warp and wiggle and move, and you're going to be really frustrated. So with most memory quilts, you're going to use interfacing just to give it some stabilizing, just to give it some stabilizer to it, and that way it's not shifting and moving all around. The next thing that I did was I got a pair of pants, and you should see in the video now how I cut up the legs, the crotch area, the sides. I'll let that play so you guys can see it. But basically there's a lot more parts when you're trying to take pants apart. But I needed the extra material, so we used the pants we had. Then after cutting the pants apart, I went ahead and I cut my 6.5-inch strips and I laid them on the pants, and then I ironed my interfacing to my material. Both the t-shirts, all of the t-shirts, and the pants. Here in the video, I only show you one shirt and one pair of pants just so that I can get done just a little bit faster. Now, depending upon how many t-shirts, pants, there's people have done socks, there's different things that you can do. Depending upon how many different sets you have, it can be a lot to keep up with. So if you guys saw my IKEA box video, I recovered an IKEA box with some really cute sewing fabric. I used that because those are my like in-between project boxes. I had already cut out all of this material, and so I had put it in my IKEA box just to keep everything together, just so that it's all organized. And so here in the video I'm taking them out, and as you can see I'm trying to lay them out so that same similar colors aren't together, because this is how laying them out made it easier to be able to see, okay, well I need this one, this one, this one, as I was trying to make my pattern for going down on the blocks. So laying them all out is going to be really, really important. As you'll see in this next video, I decided that doing one row at a time down was too difficult. I needed to be able to do, there was too much chances of being able to get doubles. So as I would do a row, I would do another row and be like, oh crud, I got a double here, because I wasn't doing them at the same time. So what I ended up doing was I ended up doing 2 rows at a time and taking out the blocks at the same time, so that when I sewed them together, I wasn't going to have doubles, because I was sitting there doing the blocks that were going right next to each other and taking from different places in the piles to be able to do that. And that eliminated a lot of the double situation. So if you don't have space to be able to lay all this out, that's what I would recommend doing. If you do have space to lay things out, that's even better. That way you can visually see if you're laying everything out flat. Then you can see if you're going to get any doubles, or if you're going to get like a string of yellow going across, like you're playing Connect 4. You can play Connect 4 with your fabrics. I did it a couple times. So I would recommend doing 2 strands at a time. That way you can tell if you're going to be doing doubles or not. But if you've got space to lay everything out, it's a little bit easier. I've also seen people take a piece of felt fabric and they hang it along their wall, and then they can kind of put their fabric on the felt. It'll kind of stick to it, or if it doesn't stick too well, you can pin it, and then you can lay everything out and then take it down and sew it that way. It's just up to you. Whatever method of quilting is easiest for you, that's what you need to do. The very next step that you're going to do is you're going to take those 2-inch blue strips that we made, and I will cut them the size of my block. So say ours was 4.5, I would cut 4.5 by 2-inch blocks. And the easiest way to do that is just to cut a bunch of 2-inch blocks and then cut 4.5, 4.5, 4.5, and so on. So you're going to be connecting the first block blue, second block blue, third block blue, and so on until you get all the way down. In my rows, I had 16 down, 18 across, so that it measured for a queen. I was doing 2 rows down at a time. I would do 1 row first, and then the next row. The next thing that you're going to do is you're going to take a 2-inch strip that we cut out for 2-inch by 90 inches, and you're going to attach that to your first row. Now make sure that you iron your row first before you attach the blue strip. I always iron in between each rows because that'll help everything lay flat. Make sure that all of your seams are all facing the same way. That way they're not getting jumbled up and messed up. Then after you attach your blue strip, you're going to iron that down facing one way or the other, and then you're going to attach the second strip that you made on the other side, and then so on. Now, as you go and you've taken and put in the blue strip on the very first block set, and you've ironed the blue strip down, you're getting ready to put the next block strip up. It's very, very important that the intersections on the block strips are together. Now, what do I mean by that? You can see when I've ironed it out how the seams are straight across from each other. As you're pinning it to do, please pin. Make sure that you pin. Make sure that the lines are all lined up, and that way that you're not getting wonky blocks. So as you're pinning it together, lift it up, make sure that the lines are together. Hopefully you can see in the video what I'm talking about. It's a little harder to explain. Hopefully you can see it in the video. Now do that what seems like 9,000 more times. It feels like it takes forever, and it is a lot of work, and especially the smaller the blocks that you have, the longer it's going to take to get done. It's worth taking your time and making sure that all of those blocks are all lined up so that and the intersections you can see in the quilt are all lined up so that it looks neat and like it's supposed to. Now in this video I just wanted to show you guys how I arrange my blocks, how I put everything together for the top of the quilt. If you're interested in seeing how they actually get sandwiched together to be able to be quilted, I have another video in my video series for quilts for that, so you guys can see me sandwiching everything together, how I put it together, and how I get it ready to be able to be quilted. The next step is going to be quilting, which is free motion quilting, if you've ever heard of that. It's a little more difficult, but it can be done. You can learn how to do it, and it's fun. Now that I know how to do it, it's a lot of fun. So I hope you enjoyed that video. If you liked it, you can give it a thumbs up. If you want to stick around and see some more of the quilting videos that I have, you can hit the subscribe button. Or if you hit the bell, YouTube will let you know when I've next uploaded. If you have any questions, or you weren't sure about some of the pieces that I've done in the particular sections, just comment in the comment section below, and I will answer those to the best of my abilities. And I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks for joining us here again on Faith Works Design. Bye, guys.